Hi, and welcome to the Organic Beehive. Today's a little impromptu video, if you couldn't tell. This is how I normally dress. There's just so much to do around the house and it gets dirty, and I just have a hard time wearing nicer things sometimes in fear that I'll just mess it up and ruin it. So you get a taste of how I look on a daily basis. But I'm doing an impromptu video mainly because and it never feels like the right time to do a video like this. And it's funny, now that I'm filming this, I thought that I was ready and that I could talk about this, but of course, saying the words makes it really hard. I hesitate to share something like this too because it's so personal to me and my family. And yeah, it's just like I'm being very vulnerable here, I suppose. And I guess I share because I feel like it would be worth it to share this if it helps somebody, I'm going to put my own issues aside if I can help somebody out. And honestly, I don't even know, and I didn't come on here with an outline of what I was going to say for this video. I had no plans really set aside for this. And so I'm really just talking off the cuff here. So I don't even know why I'm coming on. I don't know if it's to give advice or to help somebody out there feel less alone, or just to help you feel like you have support. And I'm not really sure. I'm just going to kind of talk about my story and see what comes of it, and kind of see what comes up as I'm talking, because I feel like the things that come up in my head as I talk are probably some of the most important points to this discussion. Okay, so I can't believe I'm saying these words. But my husband and I have been trying to have a baby, which has been super exciting to think about and to envision our family, and what it'll look like in the future. We have a daughter, and she loves to play. She loves to be around people. And although it does take her a while to warm up to people, she does. Once she gets to know you, she is just a big lover. She is sweet and kind and loyal, and she just loves being around friends, her neighbor friends. So I could not wait to be able to give her a lifelong friend. So you can imagine with me talking about this, and also the sudden outburst of tears that, my husband and I found out we were pregnant at the beginning of August, and 12 weeks later, we miscarried. This is not my first miscarriage. My very first pregnancy ended at 11 and a half weeks. And then we had our rainbow baby for our next pregnancy. And then I really struggled with, postpartum depression and anxiety for a while. And I told myself, I think after my daughter was a year, I just sold all the baby things and thought that I couldn't deal with another baby. I didn't think I could handle it again. But, life circumstances come up, and it just made me and my husband really think, we just would love to have a companion for our daughter. And of course, many other things. Obviously, I would love to be able to do this again. But again, those are personal reasons. But anyway, that finally, about a year and a half ago, we decided we were going to try again. Before this miscarriage, I had what you would call, I guess, 2 chemical pregnancies before that. So that's just, I lost it, within the week. So a lot of times people will take a pregnancy test. They won't take a pregnancy test, and they just assume that they have a late period. But my cycle is pretty regular, so I took the test probably a day or 2 late, was pregnant, and within the week had lost it, both of them. And so it's crazy once you deal with that sort of thing, right? With this last pregnancy, I got the pregnancy test, and of course we were excited, right? I was excited to tell my husband, because it's like, oh, the first step is done. But then fear also kicks in as well. And I don't know how to describe it. It's like you get excited for that moment because you have this hope and possibility that you are going to have a baby. But at the same hand is you wonder if it's going to end like the others. And, through each one I have tracked, and I remember when I have lost each one. And so with this one, I passed the 5 and 6 week mark, and I went further and further along, and at 10 weeks, I was starting to show, as when you have multiple kids, your second and third, etc. child, they say you show much sooner, and I felt like I was. And so as I got further along, I got more and more excited, and by the 10-week mark, we decided to tell my daughter. And I thought for sure that by 10 weeks, I was fine. I was feeling fine. I was feeling tired, like every first trimester mom does. And I thought, well, if I've come this far and I feel like this, then I'm good. I'm safe to tell her. And we told her, and we had a whole video on it. And I haven't brought myself to delete it yet, because it was so sweet. She had no idea that we were planning this. She's older. There would be quite an age gap. But I knew that this was something that she wanted so badly. And again, like, I would not have told her had I known that it wouldn't happen. You know, it's like with your kids, you don't want to put themselves through that if you can help it. But I did. I told her, and her reaction was so sweet. I think it's the sweetest thing to see little kids like that cry over such a happy moment. But the next day after we told her, we let her call our parents and let them know. And, you know, everyone was shocked, which was kind of fun. To tell you the truth, it's nice to have that surprise factor when no one, you know, was expecting it. And we just got so much love and support through that. And once we told people, I started going into more planning mode and writing lists on what I needed and things of that nature. And I don't really want to go into a lot of detail of what happened. But this first miscarriage, well, I will say this, if you've miscarried before, I feel like you nitpick at each little symptom you're having, and you're seeing what's different between, you know, my daughter's pregnancy and the miscarriages. Like, that one thing maybe gave me hope. I don't know how to describe it. But I really took a microscope under each of these pregnancies to see what was different. And I don't know. I really don't know. And with my first miscarriage, I had a warning sign. I started bleeding a few days before I actually, I would say, labored, gave birth. But this one, I didn't really have a warning. One day I started having, I started spotting a little, and I don't know, maybe I was in denial, I'm not sure. I'm sure I was in denial, but I would research things, and, you know, people spot and bleed during their pregnancy and they go full term. That's not my case. So I was a little nervous. I think I chalked it up to like hemorrhoids or something. I would rather that than the other. And then I went to sleep. I woke up feeling like my pants were soiled, and went to the bathroom, and just like that, it was gone. And then you have to take care of yourself. But then you also have to be that bearer of bad news. And I don't know if things just came full circle. My first miscarriage, I was out of state and my husband wasn't with me. So that was really hard. That was really hard for me. And this time around, he did have to go into work that day, but for whatever reason, he slept in. And I believe that was for a reason. And I know he had a busy day ahead, but he gladly put that aside he gladly put that aside to, be there. And it's really nice to have somebody in your corner like that, because you have to take care of yourself when that happens. And, he was in the background to be able to talk with my daughter, who had no idea what was going on. And he was able to get whatever supplies I needed. He was able to talk to the midwife and be that middle person. It took a lot of the stress. I mean, obviously it was still stressful, but all that extra stuff, it took that stress of that away. So moving on, I think that whole day, our whole family was just kind of out of body, almost like in a daze, feeling numb. And I remember thinking, oh, the first day is going to be the worst, But I think you're in so much shock. I mean, obviously everybody grieves differently. I understand that. But for me, I think we were all in shock, and the grieving process and the pain of it all really didn't happen until day 2 or 3, where it's like, it's sinking in. And, when you first go through a miscarriage, the things that go into your head, well, for me, was, I don't know, it would be something silly like going to the grocery store and you would break down because last time you were here, you were pregnant, or last time you wore this outfit, you were pregnant. Like, those are the things that go through my head. And so things would just pop up like that randomly, where I thought I'd be fine. And, you'd get a text from a relative that had just heard, saying you're sorry, and it reminds you again. And I think, again, this is my story, and I'm not really sure if I'm able to help anybody watching this, but you've got to go through a grieving process with all of this. Growing up, and I think many of us in our society growing up, we're not taught how to deal with our emotions. Many times I was told I was being too sensitive, or I saw, somebody's reaction when they were angry that wasn't very healthy, or, a lot of times my experience with people who were close to me was they would deal with sadness and loss by just trying to forget about it, I guess, and pushing it down. And the problem with that, and I've been having to deal with, my own childhood trauma, which I'm going off on a tangent here. Dealing with my own childhood trauma has been one of the hardest things I've had to do and face. And I probably wouldn't have done that had I not had my own child. When you have your own child, I mean, yes, that's definitely one of the hardest things you're going to have to do is raise a child. It's one of the most rewarding too, but it is very hard. And as you raise that child, you start to realize how those habits from your family, generation to generation, have now been passed on to you. And so I would notice saying something to my daughter and going, where did that come from? That doesn't sound very loving at all. That sounds like you're shaming her, or, I'm sure you can relate at some point. We all react differently to different things, but having a child really made me have to look inside, which that was so difficult. But as we've worked through it as a family, both my husband and I, obviously we still have days, but gosh, we are so much closer now because of the work that we are doing. And being aware of that now kind of helped us through this grieving process. So we knew that we didn't want to push it down and forget about it, which we have done in the past. And we didn't want to do that for our daughter either. We wanted it to be open, and we wanted to be able to talk about it. And children are going to say things that you're like, I don't think that's appropriate, but they're kids. Kids say those things. And I'm trying to think of a comment about, I don't know, something she said. I cannot remember, but I did still want to give her that safe space. And obviously if it was inappropriate, we talked about it. But anyways, this grieving process was different. And so I guess I'd like to give you some tips on if you are dealing with a loss. The first thing, obviously, is to let yourself cry if you need to cry. There is some sort of, and I'm not going to get into the science of it because I'm not entirely sure how to word it, but there is some sort of chemical reaction that happens when you cry that is actually healing. And obviously the tears are the grief coming out of your body, that sadness coming out of your body. So if you need to cry by all means. If you need to talk about it, talk about it. But keeping it in is not going to help you whatsoever. So make sure that you process and let that out, that grief out. Another thing that I would recommend is to ask for help. I can't tell you how many times people have reached out to me and said, if you need anything, please let me know. And I can't tell you how many times I've probably said that to somebody. And I want you to think, when you do say that to somebody, do you mean it? I mean it. I really do. And so we put ourselves out there, right? And we wait to hear back from that person. And how many times does that person not reach out to you again and ask for help? I don't. I'm not very good at that. I think deep down I feel like I'm a burden, and I don't want to be a burden on people. So I had to get over myself, and I reached out and I asked for help. So sometimes, in order for you to process, that means being alone, and that is very uncomfortable, but sometimes you have to do it. And so asking for help, like, hey, can you watch Like I had many people offer to watch my daughter, so I could think about everything that had happened. Now I didn't take them up on that because she was almost healing for me, you know, like, wow, I'm gonna hold you a little tighter tonight and every night, because I've had such issues trying to get pregnant. And so, you know, it makes me so grateful for that. But yeah, my second word of advice would be to ask for help if you need it. There are people out there that truly want to help you. And people don't know how to help you. I think people mean well. And what we have to do in asking for help is being specific about what we need. So those are the two things. And I mean, here I am almost a month afterwards, and it's still hard. Moving forward though, and I guess that was the hardest thing, was like the unknown. It happened, and now there was almost this anxiety for me, like, I don't have a solution. What am I gonna do? If you're watching this and you know someone going through it, I think we need to approach the person, letting them know that you are there for them, that you are sorry. But giving words of advice with something like that, I would not recommend. Because I did not do well with that. That first week. I think people who are dealing with those raw emotions need to just know that you are there for them, and that's it. Words of advice, like when you're grieving, that logical side of you doesn't really kick in for a little while. And so it wasn't until the next week that I was able to think a little more rationally. I'm going to try and post a little more. I can't always guarantee it because stay-at-home mom, homeschool mom, you know, husband that works. It's hard to get to. But I think we need to talk about this stuff more. And luckily, you know, it has come about more, because from now until the first miscarriage I had, which was like 10 years ago, 9 years ago. 9 years ago, people didn't talk about it. And so I feel like now, fast forward, it's not so, I don't know. It's a little more talked about, luckily. But I think I'm going to share a little bit of my journey, just tidbits. I'm not going to share with you going to the doctor, but I am going to go see an OBGYN because, you know, I do feel like this has happened enough to where I think there's got to be something going on. I pray that it's an easy fix. I have hope that I can still have a child because I have one, and I know how lucky I am. I know there are so many fertility issues and things of that nature, so my heart goes out to you. I don't know exactly what you're going through. I guess maybe I feel like I've had a taste with the miscarriages, but again, I can't compare, of course. But we are definitely, I am going to see somebody. We're going to get hormone levels checked, all that stuff. And that way, I think just after all of this, I needed a little bit of closure, if you know what I mean. Whether the closure is knowing that, you know, hey, you have the go ahead to keep trying, or closure in that, you know, we can't have any more kids. And I think if that were to happen, obviously there would be more grieving to do. And I even remember my husband saying something like, I think obviously he has had a difficult time with all of this, but in the way that he has processed and grieved through all this, he has said, you know, I don't think I've cried as much because there is still hope. And that's how I feel. And maybe if you've miscarried, you still have that hope, like I'm still gonna try. But you know, I'm getting older. I'm already, you know, you turn 35 and you're already considered a big health risk from your age. And I don't view it like that. I had the issue even when I was younger. So, but with that, there's a little urgency for me in wanting to figure it out soon, really. So, I'm tired now. I talked a lot on this video, I think more than I have in all of my videos. And it was a really tough topic, and I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Just know that if you have dealt with pregnancy loss, that my heart is with you and that I pray for you. And I hope that we both get our happy ending. Bye.